From the shadows of doubt to embracing the light. Welcome to the journey. Feel the beat in your soul. From caving in to crushing it. Join us, let's roll.
I am so excited to be here. We have a wonderful guest. I'm Drew Duraney here on From Caving In to Crushing It. I'm the caregiver coach. Marcia Earhart is our guest today. And Marcia Earhart is a certified life trauma, grief, brain, and mental health coach, mediator, author, and HeartSync minister. Her guidance is both professional and personal. Having navigated the deaths of 2 sons within the last 11 years, one tragically murdered, she stands as a testament to God's faithfulness in the deepest valleys of grief, and now leads others in healing. Her powerful new book, Gripping Grace in the Garden of Grief, is a raw and vulnerable chronicle of devastating loss. More than a memoir, it is a lifeline, exploring the fragile threads of love and pain that hold us together, and revealing the God-given hope that can rebuild a shattered life. Marcia's mission extends beyond the page. As the co-founder of the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, a 501c3 nonprofit, she boosts on the ground in the mental health crisis. She creates a safe haven for the grieving to release their trauma and pain so they can breathe again, move again, and live again. Her ministry reaches a diverse community across the United States and 6 other countries, standing as a powerful reminder that in deep sorrow, no one has to walk alone. Marcia has been married to her best friend Scott for 35 years, and together they homeschooled and enjoyed raising their 4 boys and daughter. Marcia, Scott, and 2 of their adult children who live nearby love spending time together, whether it's making memories at the beach, traveling, playing games, having deep conversations, cooking, supporting their daughter's businesses, or supporting and listening to their son's music rise above everything on Apple and Spotify. Please welcome Marcia Earhart and enjoy the show.
Hello.
Oh my, I got goosebumps reading your bio, Marcia. My goodness, it's so good to see you.
It is great seeing you. Thank you so much, Drew, for having me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I always love, before we even hit the record button, that we get to catch up, because so many things can happen in a month, let alone a week, let alone a day. And it's just so good to see you. Your smile is just brightening the room. So thanks for being here.
Well, I'm enjoying our time already, and I'm excited about what we're going to unpack together. And when you and I first met, we just hit it off. We just have so much in common.
I agree 100%. So I love to thank the person who introduced us. And this was a different one. It was your team found us and introduced you and me. And I can't thank them enough, because if you guys didn't find us and you didn't think to connect Marcia and me, we wouldn't be here. So I thank you for that. It's those little things that matter. My audience knows that I always talk about how when we're young, we are taught, and it's not a malicious teaching, that life is linear. It's a straight line. If we do A plus B plus C, D is going to happen. And for the most part, life is linear until it's not. Ultimately, there's an external circumstance that gets in the way of one of those letters and derails our straight path to a more circuitous one. When that happens, that means adversity just reared its ugly head. And the question is, do we see that adversity or do we not? And if we see it, do we do something about it? That's where I've come to think that there's 3 types of people out there, 3 types of men, 3 types of women. So woman number 1 has a ton of blind spots. She doesn't even see that adversity. And because of that, she does nothing to change it. She's living a life she believes other people want her to live and doesn't change anything. And then there's woman number 2. She sees that adversity and she says, oh, that's a barrier. That's not an opportunity. I can't do anything. Life is what it is. I can't change anything. And so she doesn't. And on her deathbed, she's got a ton of regrets. And then there's woman number 3. That's Marcia Earhart. Woman number 3 sees the adversity and says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Life is giving something for me. It's an opportunity, not a barrier. I'm going to do something massive, take massive action, become a stronger woman on the other side. we have that stronger woman here today. Marcia, I have a question for you, if you may. Please share that defining moment in life, whether it was the tap on the shoulder, the whisper in the ear, or like what I needed, a 2x4 upside my head, that kind of transformed me and transformed you into the person you are now, and really pivoted you to the strong woman you are today. Can you please share that?
Well, I think that if I start with the linear, when you were talking about that, I never got to experience a linear moment because the first death that entered my life was 3.5, and it was a pivot point for me. And from that point on, I had a series of deaths, 17 to be exact, by the time I was 18 years old.
Oh my.
So I pivoted early on. And when I say that, I became very serious about life. I knew the brevity of life. And I took life with a seriousness in that I did not want to do things that could cause death or to be a part of those things. Because as a child, even though my parents explained the death of my great-grandmother to me, what I knew is that she was never going to be with me again. So I understood the concept that once someone was gone, they're not coming back. So anytime, and I would say what happened in that season from 3.5, coming through my elementary years into my middle school years, I became very intentional about the way I spent my time, who I spent my time with, the choices I made in friendships. And I valued my family so much that they were my priority over everyone and everything else, regardless of the season of life I was in. Because what I understood, even in elementary, middle, and high school, most of those people were not going to be there with me for the rest of my life, but my family could be and would be maybe. Absolutely. And so you were talking about defining, and I was like, wow. I was defined early on, but I think there were, and when I say, I think there was redefining, not defining, but redefining early on. And then as I entered into my college years, from high school to my college years, I was seeing already the calling on my life because everyone always turned to me for counsel. So I had been seeing this for so long that was part of my pivotal changes, that all these things have happened for purpose. And to start allowing that in my college years to develop that purpose.
It's fascinating with that, Marcia, because at that young of an age, we could be conditioned to death and not see that there's another side to it. Do you have a mentor when you were at that young age who helped guide you to believe in something bigger and stay positive in all that tragedy?
Well, my great aunt Minnie Pearl, she was a strong believer in the Lord. And she really exemplified just the faith of someone who was victorious and enduring with joy and peace. And I would have to say I was very blessed to have those kind of older women in my life that really showed me an example, and when you were talking earlier, to never be the victim. I never saw, in any season of my life, I never saw myself as the victim. And I was bullied all the way through my elementary, middle, and high school years.
Well, let's talk about the bullying and how you handled it with your faith. How did you not let the bullying get to you? And how did you have such a strong self-identity that it helped carry you through that time period?
I love that question. First of all, my mother was an amazing woman. She knew how to speak to that in me. And because initially it did bother me. I would, come in and I was just like, they're making fun of me. They're this, they're that. And my mom said, well, God created you uniquely. No one else can be you. And she spoke very specifically over my identity as to who Jesus and the Father say I am.
Mm-hmm.
And her speaking that in continuation, I believed that because my mother did not lie. And it became part of the very fiber of my being. And when they would make fun of me for not dressing the way they dressed or
Right.
doing, she would say, but if that's not who God created you to be, you don't need to conform to make them happy that you're now conforming to the way they want you to be. And so she really knew how to speak life in the places where death was trying to take root in me. And she would ask me challenging questions about, do you want to be like them? And I did not. What do you think if you did do that? What do you think the outcome would be? So her questions were wonderful to me. And she wasn't dismissive. She really was validating to me that I was being bullied, but she also helped me recognize that I probably was the object of jealousy as well, because I could stand on my own. And if I made a decision, just because you don't agree with it, I'm not backing down.
Beautiful.
And then my faith also was coupled in with that, Drew, because my faith was really a strong faith, even in middle school and really in elementary, middle, and high school, and continued to even be continually strengthened in my relationship with the Lord.
What a beautiful lesson from your mother. You had that faith, which was now habit, right? Your belief in
Yes.
God and Jesus was now habit. And on top of that, she taught you that the healing comes from within, that your self-identity is within you, and it doesn't have to be dictated by conforming or comparison. So many of us adults, many adults, still compare ourselves and try to conform to others. And you didn't have to worry about that people pleasing, because you knew who you were, who your authentic self were, and you were going to show no masks. You were just going to be Marcia, the one who God brought into this world. So thank you for sharing that, because I think it's a big lesson. Whether or not you believe in God, it's important to believe in a higher power, something that is bigger than yourself, that you can aspire to be the best person you can be, and to look inside of you to become who you are is so important. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thanks for asking, because I think it's important, especially as we're in a culture that I think continues to bully. Cyberbullying is just exponential, and one that we still don't talk as much about, and we don't have as many resources. But I think it's something, and I want individuals to know they are created uniquely themselves to be who they are, and to embrace their identity as to the true identity who God has said they are, because we are told who we are. We don't have to go search it out for ourselves.
Absolutely. And those who have that strong identity will be the leaders moving forward in life. And so you are certainly a leader, Marcia. Marcia, so we've gotten through your 18 years, you're going through college. Tell us what happens after college. What did you want to do in life? Who did you want to be? And how did you go about it?
Well, I wanted to get married. I wanted to have children, and I wanted to raise my children. I was already a teacher. I was a middle school and high school teacher, which I loved. I just loved that age.
Right.
What a great age, or ages. And I honestly have to say, everything I've wanted to do, God has blessed me to do. I know a lot of people are very confused about what they want to do, but I really knew what I wanted to do and set out with intention. And I was very blessed to marry my husband that I'm married to. And we started a family. And in doing so, after teaching for a while, I realized I did not want my kids going to school. I wanted to homeschool.
Right.
And so, I was seeing a lot of issues within the system. The kids couldn't think critically. I think everybody needs to learn how to be critical thinkers. I was coming home, I'm looking at stuff and I'm checking stuff, and I'm telling my husband, these kids don't know how to think critically. They're not being challenged. They're just, and I was in high school, teaching high school at that time. And people, they're just being pushed through the system, and it's just regurgitation. Mm-hmm. That's not really challenging them and fostering a mindset of creativity. And so as I'm talking to him, he's heard this, and then he's like, yeah, I would like for us to homeschool. So we homeschooled for 27 years. And during that time, I think I relearned all the things that were fallacies and inaccuracies
Isn't that
as we
amazing?
grew up. Yeah. I was like, wow, I feel like I have a real education now, based on truth. And it was just it was really magical. Homeschooling was one of the most magical things because our life, everything was homeschool. We traveled. And so in travel, all the kids would do research, and they would have to be the ones to teach about a certain thing that we did. Even when we went to Disney, one of them had to tell about Walt Disney and what he did, and then the creation of the roller coaster. So the whole trip was educational but fun. So everything we did was like that, and we still live like that, even with our adult children today. Everything is so fun but educational.
I love this. And let's talk more about homeschooling, because back then, I think it's more accepted nowadays than it was back then. Is that a safe assumption?
I think it's I think it's safe to say people had their ideologies of what a homeschooler was.
Right.
And we were placed in a box as weird and fanatical and overly religious. And, the reason we homeschooled was not to isolate our children, but to insulate them and to give them critical thinking skills so that they could live in their creative design. And my kids, my younger two now have their own businesses. My older one was in college or in law school to be an attorney. They all knew what they wanted to be. It wasn't a guess for them because they had been grown up with these areas to be able to creatively check into, and it just they understood who they were.
Right.
So there was no finding themselves.
Right. I mean, they spend most of their time with their parents, and you don't want school to take over certain things that parents need to be the ones to teach. What state did you homeschool? Because I know every state is different with what what the rules are. Are there strict rules or stringent rules with homeschooling?
Absolutely. And I think there should be. We homeschooled in North Carolina and in Florida. In North Carolina and Florida, you have to have an end of the year test. It's a state test that has to be taken by your kids. They have, the Woodcock Johnson, they have written tests, the Iowa test, just like a kid would take in the schools. And, you could take those tests, and we did every year. My kids did exceedingly well on their test every year. We didn't get hung up on teaching to perform like they do in school and to perform the outcome that they want so they can receive money from the government. We were teaching our kids to learn for the sake and the excitement of learning. And so we covered not just what we needed, but far more, because my kids were always on the higher end of this. And most homeschoolers actually tested other homeschool kids. They did really well. And again, there are different philosophies of types of ways that you can teach your children. And what I have to tell you, Drew, is most of the homeschool kids that I know, they're highly successful individuals. They also, if they went to college, they were very sought out, and they went to great institutions because they already had such great skills of really research and writing. And so, for us, it just really fit. And I have to be honest, I want everyone to understand, every year we prayed about every child. We had 5 children. Some years, all were homeschooled. One year, 2 were in private, 2 were homeschooled, 1 was out. One year, 3 were out, all were home. The other year, 1 was out. And then, it's just not a blanket covering. We really took seriously that these kids were entrusted us. We wanted to make sure they were where they needed to be. And they all were given opportunities, sports, music, art, and they're very talented. My oldest was a black belt, accomplished black belt, and he graduated high school at 16, went to college, and then was in law school at 20.
There you go. So that's where I want to get into there are a lot of myths with homeschooling. What would you say are the most common myths you can debunk for us?
Well, I think there's so many. I think that most people homeschool because they're fearful of the in the environment for their children to be in. That's one I hear quite, oh, well, you're just homeschooling. No, we weren't fearful. That it's because and again, the religious, back then, I think it's changed now. I see so many that are homeschooling, but back then, I love it that all homeschoolers, have the women have the jean skirt and the collared, top. And I mean, there was this, and let me just tell you, if anybody can blow out the homeschooling aspect of what it looked like, I would have been that person, because I never looked like that person. Because it's not about a look. It really, for the people that I was around and who we were, it really was about opportunity. I really wanted my kids to be able to explore and to engage in education where they love it. And to this day, they love it. The kids in high school and middle school hated learning. They would come to school grumbling. And guess what? I hated it for them, because it was boring. Now, not in my class, because I would make it exciting. In my middle school, we actually my kids had to create a business. They were broken into teams. And this is before the Rice Krispie treats came out with like the s'more treats and stuff. My kids created that. They came up and created those things. And I said, okay, now you've got to get your cost. You've got to make the product. And we did all this, and we put it all together. And they actually had to see how much money they would make. And there were 5 businesses. We had to pick which one would do the best. And it was the Rice Krispie treats with the different, like the chocolate chips in it. And the, I used to know that it was Oreo cookies in it. And we had to really, it was amazing. And then they had to sell it at the school play. They exceeded, and they learned that they could be entrepreneurial, successful business people in my middle school.
You just answered one of my questions, because they were certainly integrated into the school system with the activities, and they can be in the play and be in sports. It was just the scholastic piece was done at home, which built a big foundation for them.
Oh no, this was when I'm talking about that. That was when I was teaching middle school.
Oh, you were teaching middle school. Okay.
Yeah, I actually did that with kids. I taught in middle school, because I wanted education for it to be the practical of life, but to bring it into so they could see that. And we did that in our own home. We did the same thing. I taught my kids from that way. I want you to explore, have a business. How do we do this? What would be your marketing proposal? Okay, who's doing that in middle school somewhere else?
That's a good point. But your children were allowed to be integrated into the school for those activities, right? I know we talked a little about that. They played sports and whatnot. All right, that's awesome. Now, you said you had 5 children?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I know there are 2 very deep stories that you have for 2 of your boys.
Yes.
Would you please let us know how you got through all that? Tell us the story and how your faith and your strength has gotten you and your family through all those trying times.
Yes. So in 2014, February 14th, our oldest son died tragically in a car accident outside on the same street we lived on. He had left the law school, which was on the same street we lived on, and hit a tree and died instantly. They think he fell asleep at the wheel. Anyways, in the car, it accelerated. It was a horrible situation. And in that moment, we just had to acknowledge we died too. We did. Our whole family did, as to who we were. My husband and I, as to who all of us. And so I think in that initial moment, I mean, the Lord was speaking to me while the sheriff were standing at our door. And it's almost like I was split, because I'm watching them and I'm listening, but internally, the Father and Jesus and Holy Spirit are with me, and they're speaking to me. And the Lord said, I am with you. I told you I would never leave and forsake you. And I've been preparing you for this. And he's showing me a reel in my head. And it's like I'm watching a video, and I'm watching his preparation through the years. And we're dialoguing. Like I am talking to him, he's talking to me.
Mhm.
And in that moment, I am feeling this overwhelming sense that someone has just come and stripped every bit of my skin off. And I'm as raw and vulnerable and as in much pain that I could ever imagine. But yet I was being held. I was being contained. I was being uplifted. And I could feel a strength that was not mine at all.
I just got tingling, and I felt what you were saying. And how does one, I know you're hearing God speak with you and you're talking to the sheriff, and how does one remain faithful in something as impactful as that in a short amount of time?
I don't think the question is, how does one remain faithful?
Mhm.
God is faithful to us. I don't know that we as people will ever be faithful to him.
Okay.
But what I do think is that if we have a relationship with him, and it's a strong, intimate relationship,
Right.
and we know his character and we know him,
Mhm.
then how could I not make it without him?
So the family getting, I know you really can't ever get over something. I mean, I always hear the cliche, time heals all wounds. I personally don't believe that's the case. It may put layers upon the wounds. After this all happened, I know you had some more tragedy in the family. When you were healing as a family, what happened next?
Well, first of all, I want to say time will never heal, but intentionality heals. I am healed because we set with intention to
Okay.
have healing. Time would have never and will never heal.
Right.
Because all time does is give distance, but there's nothing that's happening to bring healing.
Right.
If I'm not choosing a path to be healed.
That's a very good point.
So we set to be healed from that onset of the sheriff standing in front of us.
Okay, I understand.
And we had these conversations. How do we do this moving forward? Well, you have to communicate effectively. You have to understand what your triggers to the trauma are and be able to make sure that something that's healing to me may be triggering to you, that we understand one another in this and that we give each other space, that I can't necessarily have that because it's going to trigger you, but I need this for my healing. How do we figure this out? And we work through it. So that's first and foremost. The next tragedy, as we're in the process of our intentionality to healing, we get to the fall of 2019, and it was the first year where we were making it through the beginning of September, the celebrations of birthday, and because that would be Sterling's birthday. And it was usually very triggering for my youngest son, who had some mental health problems because of his brother's passing. So tragically, he was 12. And so we're at this point, and we're feeling milestones have happened. And we get to our birthday in October. Mine and my youngest son share our birthday on the same day. And within a week, my second son is murdered with his girlfriend from an ex-boyfriend who flew from Baltimore to kill them and left their 6-month-old alone. And they were not found for over 40 hours. And that baby was in that house unattended for over 40 hours. And so now there's this implosion of a murder, someone who with intention set out to kill. And so we enter in the space again that we have all died, that life as we have known it yet again has changed. And now we're having to start over, that we're going to have to be new people yet again because we've all died to who we were again. And that's where we started in 2019, October 26th. That year.
Wow. And then shortly after that came the pandemic, which
yes, on the heels of that. Yes. And yes. And so here we are, and we We already had the Sterling Rose Sanctuary that was established in 2017 when our second son was murdered. Mark, we said on the sanctuary, we said we will be taking time off to heal, as we encourage each of you to do when you're in a place that you need healing. And we will come back and we will let you know. And we followed up at that point. Several months later, we came back in, and then we entered as boots on the ground for the pandemic, because we had been working with people who had lost a child, sibling, or grandchild. And now we would be dealing with all grief, all trauma that needed to have hands to hold and someone to be present with them.
It's a challenge to find silver lining in tragedies like the ones you've mentioned. Yet you were there, you're here now. Instead of keeping it to yourself, you are helping others grieve and get through traumatic times. Can you tell us a little about the Sterling Rose Sanctuary and how that became a part of it now? Yeah, what were you doing for your business first professionally before you started the Sterling Rose Sanctuary?
I had
Were you still teaching?
I was just at the point, 2016, 7 would have been right when 15, 16 would have been when I'd stopped homeschooling. But what happened in 2015 is I turned from counseling and went and got my life, grief, trauma, mental health coaching, and my mediation, and then went back last year and got a brain coach certification for Amen Institute or Amen Clinics. But the Lord said, I want you to shift. And so, I started shifting. Okay. And then the sanctuary was actually founded on the seeds that fell to the ground, because when something dies, we need to understand it takes something to produce life. So the seeds went in the ground, and the Lord had said that he would produce life from Sterling's death, and he did. And that was the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. And why is it called the Sterling Rose Sanctuary? Because sterling means precious, and the rose, you cannot have the rose without the thorns. And so in order for us to be able to live in this life, we have to be able to unpack the thorns in order to appreciate each rose on that petal. And so we felt the Lord felt there needed to be this place. And he gave me the entire vision of what it needed to look like. I wrote it all down, and we've been serving since then.
That's an amazing story, and you see how Sterling's life and his legacy lives on through the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. Tell us how it does operate. What are the processes? How do you help people? How does it work?
So we work with people all over the U.S. and in 7 countries, and they can reach out on our website. They can call our phone number, and we work with anyone who has had trauma and who has had grief, or who is experiencing trauma and grief. And so that would include anyone who's had any kind of losses, loss of health, loss of finances, loss of life, loss of financial status, and just finances altogether. People who have been sexually, ritually abused. We work with so many sexual, ritual abused individuals. And yes, I'm talking about sexual, ritual abuse like Jeffrey Epstein stuff that we're seeing right now. We've been working with that for years. We work with anyone who's had any kind of sexual grooming, any kind of those, and with addictions, depression, anxiety. So anyone who has had any trauma that has caused any fracturing of parts, because what happens when we have trauma is there are parts of us that start reacting in certain ways, and we may not realize it, and people may say things to us and we look at them funny, or we say, I don't know why I did that. Well, it's because it comes from a traumatic event. It comes out of something that we are unaware of. So people can call us, they can reach out to us, and we work with them and bring healing through heart healing. I am a HeartSync minister. It's one of the modalities that I have. And so we do heart healing because there are many modalities that are kind of smushed together to bring healing to the parts that have been fractured so that they can breathe again, move again, and live again in their created design. Because we have this created design that we're meant to live in, but we also have these very painful things that happen in life that can prevent us, that can steal our life from us, that does not allow us, because we don't choose to live from the tree of life. We stay in the tree of death and we remain there. And so what we do is we help people say, hey, you can step back into the tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
Let us help you and let us walk with you and help create that space for you.
It's interesting because, the emotions we feel, either despair, grief, elation, whatever, the emotions are real. The negative emotions, we don't have to stay in it, live in it.
That's right. That's right.
And many people do because they feel guilty. Like, how can I, act one way if this happened? So I understand how we've got to reframe the brain.
That's right.
To believe that it's okay to go through the grief and it's okay to come out of it and find joy again. And one of the things you mentioned about the HeartSync healing, can you explain to us what that is and the science? Because I know there's science behind that too.
It is.
Explain that so people can understand what that is.
So we have 4 parts of the heart. The first one would be emotion. Emotion is front prefrontal cortex, right brain. And so when we're talking about emotions, we're talking about any negative emotion that cannot return to joy quickly. Just what you talked about. So we want to acknowledge those negative emotions, whether it's anger, rejection, shame, guilt, bring them into this place so that they can be released, so that they can have newness. It's an exchange. In grief, I say there's an exchange. You come in and you release, but then you receive the new life back. You receive back that which it's supposed to be. So if I'm coming in and I say I'm coming in with all this sorrow, I can release that sorrow. And I'm talking about a spirit of sorrow, not just sorrow, something that's come over me that it's operating and I just keep crying and crying and crying. That's a spirit that has come upon me that's causing me not to be able to have joy. So we release that and then we can have peace and then operate from joy again. So emotion would be the first, right brain. Next would be function, left brain, prefrontal cortex. Function is that does the functioning things every day. Get up, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, get a cup of coffee. It's routine kind of stuff, but it's doing the things it needs to do. Getting you dressed, getting in the car. However, it becomes dangerous when function goes into autopilot and it doesn't know what it's doing. So that would be fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's when we're dealing with trauma and grief, we want to come in and heal those parts because they should not be existing and in the overshadowing of all the other parts. It got you through what you needed, but now we need it to be able to be synchronized so that it's operating in the way it should be again. Right. The next part would be, you have a question. What?
No, I love the way you explained it, that it's really a moment in time, the grief, and you can work through it. And I like the using both sides of the human brain because we use both sides every day.
Yes.
You're intentionally teaching people how to go, where the fight and flight starts and the fawn and freeze.
Yes.
And you're teaching them how to utilize that. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it was
no.
fascinating explaining it.
Yeah, I could see your face. I wanted to say, because I think it's important. And so true self would be kind of mid right here in the brain. True self would be the part that closely identifies and has a relationship with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay. And so true self should be the operator of you. And let me give it in a car scenario. If you have a car, the true self should be driving the car because it knows the maker of the car and it has the manual for the car.
Right.
So it can receive all that input. And function would be in the passenger seat like a dog with its head out the window, wagging its tail, enjoying the ride.
Right.
And so the next part would be guardian. Guardian is in the amygdala. The amygdala is back in the kind of the central part, lower area of the brain.
Right.
The amygdala is what stores all of our trauma and our grief.
Right.
And so that is, the guardian is supposed to know when it's safe and when it's not safe. But if the guardian has been in trauma, that could be deregulated, and it could be completely stopped.
Right.
Or it could be going so fast in the wrong direction that it is causing danger to itself.
Right. That what you just mentioned. Yeah, what you just mentioned. I used to learn the term amygdala hijack.
Yes. And it's interesting you say that, because what I tell people when they have a part that comes in, let's say it is anger, and anger is like, well, I'm just angry, and I've been this way. And I said, but did you know you were hijacked? That you've been hijacked and you've been told a lie. So when we were talking about earlier reframing, you've got to reframe the lie with what is true. And
right.
So then all of a sudden this part starts going, wait a minute, I don't have to operate this way. And I'm like, no, baby, you have options here. Mm-hmm. So you can have healing, and in your healing, then you can be set with something new.
Right.
So those 4 parts. And so what I need to say, every hidden guardian, and we're talking about hidden guardian, we're talking about all those little fractured parts. Mm-hmm. Every hidden guardian has an emotional part attached to it.
Right.
That makes it operate the way it does. So in a HeartSync, we bring these parts into the presence of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, mm-hmm. so that they can have a time to release and a time to be healed and to be reset and renewed. And for someone who's not a Christian, you still can HeartSync. You do it through me, and you still have the same healing. It's just you're not doing it as a believer, because Jesus God in Isaiah said he came to set the captive free, heal the brokenhearted, be close to them, bind them, and to rebuild their ruins. That's for all people, not just believers. That's the great thing. Everybody can be healed.
Absolutely. And what I love about what you're practicing is really bringing in the heart, the brain, and the soul to work together. Yes. Each plays a part. One's like the GPS, like you said.
Yes.
Right? The soul or
yes.
So is there anything else that you're doing professionally that we didn't touch on that you would love the audience to learn about?
Well, I just think that, when we're talking about this, and we're talking about mind, body, soul, and spirit, that, there has to be, we incorporate things like somatic exercises, breathing techniques, because people who are grieving, who've been traumatized, they're not breathing properly.
Right. Right.
And so what I want for people to understand is there is this incredible fullness of restoration that happens. And people say, well, I don't understand. How does the spiritual get affected by this? Mm-hmm. Well, this is the most fascinating. When we have trauma and grief, that exposes our right and wrong theology. Mm-hmm. And therefore, it too can have healing. Right. And so I just think people need to understand this is the whole person. It's about everything. We're not just trying to see one part of you. We want to see all of you. We want you to eat well. We want you to eat the foods that you should be eating, not the things like the starches and all those breads and things that are making
processed foods.
Yes, because that's what people turn to when they're hurting, when they're aching, when there's grief. And so we do clean eating. We're wanting to clean everything up that you can have a reset on.
Right. You also mentioned the proper way to breathe. Most humans do not know how to breathe, and that sounds weird. But when we're overwhelmed and we're stressed, you ever catch yourself short breathing and realize, I haven't taken a deep breath? I remember working in healthcare for 24 years, and that little item when people, before they're being discharged, they have to blow into this plastic thing called an incentive spirometer.
Yes.
So the little ball goes to the top. The reason behind that is you don't want to have people get infections of respiratory infections, because it's important for the human being to inhale all the way and exhale, fill the lungs and deplete the lungs, the air in the lungs, So they get a solid breath with oxygen to the brain and all that kind of stuff. There's so much science behind proper breathing that can help us in grieving. And is that what you would like to add to that?
It's diaphragmatic breathing, and most people don't understand where their diaphragm is. If you ask someone to inhale, typically you'll see their stomach suck in. That's wrong. And so what I do is I have everybody lay down, and I'm like, even if you're on the phone, go lay down flat. And I need for you, when you inhale, to feel underneath your ribs go out, like someone's pumping your stomach out. And then when you inhale that way, continue, and it will go all the way up into your chest cavity. Once the diaphragm has filled up, guess where the rest of the air goes? If you keep breathing in, up into your chest cavity, lifting the chest cavity. But first, the diaphragm has to be out first, and then I'll tell them to hold it.
Yeah.
So they'll breathe in, for 5, and then I'll say hold it for 6, and then exhale for 7 slowly. And to do that several times a day, and it starts resetting their body, and they come back into their cortisol levels. Start being pulled in. The adrenals start, because when we're in stress, the cortisol and the adrenals start kind of going haywire. Because again, if you're not breathing properly, you're not getting the oxygen to your brain, oxygen to your organs, you're struggling, and it's causing the body to keep the score even more so of all the trauma that's happening within the body. And the body will keep the score of the pain and trauma.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Well, certainly the audience has captured the essence of Marcia Earhart, and they're going to want to get in touch with you. So, folks, best way to get in touch with Marcia is the sterlingrosesanctuary.com. Let's go right to the website. You can find everything you need. Marcia, I could talk to you forever. We got 2 more questions. The first one is, I'm going to give you the opportunity of sitting down with 7 to 10-year-old Marcia, and you want to give her advice about life. What are you going to tell her?
Oh, I would tell her to stay with her eyes focused exactly on the things her mom and the mentors around her really encouraged her to. And to not waver, to not go off that, and to really believe that Jesus at that age is exactly who he says he is, and to really get deeply seated and to stay rooted there.
Love that. All right. Now you have the opportunity of sitting with young entrepreneur, young businesswoman, Marcia Earhart. You want to give her advice about business. What are you going to tell her?
Nothing is impossible. That if she seeks to do it, that everything will be provided in its timing, and that she needs to ask the questions from the people who have had success in those areas, and to seek out the entrepreneurs that would be able to share with her their perspective of why and the how to, and then to ask if they would mentor her, because I think mentorship is really important, and to have someone mentor.
Love that. Great responses, great advice. And Marcia, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for being the human being you are. You're a wonderful human being. You're doing amazing things for people who've gone through so many things. You've gone through so much. You are a gift from God for all of us. And I want to thank you for being who you are.
Well, I want to thank you, and thank you for having this topic of conversation. It's not always a popular one.
Right.
And really encourage your audience that healing is for them. And I just hope that they take those steps of intentionality to be healed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody out there, please take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thank you.
Sound of your light, from the shadows.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second. because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.